the United States and Israel seem determined to go to war with Iran because, like you said, Iran was complying, everything was fine. And then it was the United States that decided to tear up the deal. For what reason? Nobody knows. Well, we know it's because to instigate war, because the Israelis have a lot of power with our US politics and they want war. So throw out, tear up the deal. That's one step closer to war. Bomb Iran. You say that Iran's not compliant, one step closer. I mean, it just seems like no matter what Iran does, the US and Israel are going to, the United States is going to make moves to put Iran one step closer to war every single time. So what would be the answer? It seems like you're going to war no matter what. So I don't know is there anything that could even prevent that?
Kim, Trump administration wanted to stop the uranium enrichment in the country. They were not able to achieve it through the political negotiations. That I think why they resorted to military option that was initiated by Israel, and they themselves joined Israel later on. And they also Israelis wanted to bring regime change to the country. They thought that following their attack against the country, they will stop Iran's ability to respond. They will provoke people to come to the street and to protest against the country and the political system. And this didn't happen. And let's not forget that by bombing the nuclear, facilities, you cannot stop that nuclear activities. You can, destroy infrastructure. You can kill a number of scientists, but you cannot kill the knowledge. Sooner or later, the country will be able to do that. But the point is, again, Iran was and has been willing to negotiate with other parties in order to give assurances that its nuclear program has been peaceful. It was at the negotiating table, and these days they are talking to the European countries. And if there are, let's say, fair, conditions or let's say terms from the other side, there could also be chances or possibility for, let's say, negotiations with the United States. But what the United States wants is complete, annihilation of Iran's nuclear enrichment or even the program itself. This is, Kim, if that was the, end game, that was something else. But I think that, stopping the enrichment is not about an end game. It's about setting a new stage for a new era. The United States and Israel will not stop there. If Iran accepts those radical, terms and demands from the American side, that will be an invitation for new and further demands in future. The other day, they will demand Iran, abandoning its, defense and missile capabilities. The next day, they are going to demand Iran abandon its interest in the region and not to work with other regional countries. So they will not stop
right
until they are seeing a kind of, let's say, capitulation from the Iranian side. And this was something which was also clearly stated by the US President Donald Trump.
right
Israelis, they will not stop, at the regime change. They will go beyond that. What they want is dismembering Iran. So that's why this is a process which the end is not stopping the nuclear enrichment, but this is a new beginning for further demands from Iran. So that's why the calculus here in Tehran is a bit different. And we have these different, components and elements in the play. So that's why it's a bit, or I would say very complicated to resolve this issue. This was already difficult, but the situation has been exacerbated by that military aggression against the country. The walls of distrust between Iran and the United States were already standing very tall. What that military attack did was not, improving the situation or resolving part of the problem, but it, somehow increased the level of the complexity of the issue and, let's say, the difficulty. And now, if the level of trust was, high in the past toward the United States in Iran, and the level is now higher comparing to prior to the military attack. So that's why, yes, answering this question is very difficult, and the resolution is not that simple. as a result of what has happened recently. And but Tehran, despite these, recent developments, has been trying to reach out to different players in order to see if there could be any window of opportunity for resolving those issues or not.
I mean, I don't think there are. And the only reason is because of what you just laid out and what I think the attack on Iran showcased, which is that the Israelis want complete annihilation of the country, and that's it. I mean, I don't think they're going to be satisfied with anything other than Iran looking like uh, Palestine to them, completely disarmed with kind of a puppet government, and they're going to continue to demand, like you just said, right now they're demanding no uranium enrichment whatsoever, which was not part of the original deal. They tore it up so that they could then demand you're not allowed to do any of it. And then the demand will move to, as it's been kind of moving to, no defensive weapons. And then it'll move to no military at all, while they're also trying to topple the government and instill a government that they think is friendly to them. I mean, what they want is Iran to look, I think a better comparison is Syria. They want Iran to turn into Syria, to the current Syrian government under their regime, under their control, and no real military might. That's what they want.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to raise one more thing, Kim, if I may, that what made the Iranian people united against that military aggression was that they were looking at what happened in Syria, because Israelis and Americans, they were saying that because Bashar al-Assad, a friend of Iran, is in Damascus in Syria, so that's why they are having problems and they are having sanctions against the country. But following the departure of Bashar al-Assad, what happened to Syria? Israelis destroyed significant amount of defense infrastructure in Syria. They have been occupying parts of Syria. They are within Syria. They have presence in that country. And you are seeing these days what is happening to Syria. So that's why Iranian people will not buy that, Israelis, as well as the American government, want to somehow help them and to improve, their living conditions. That's why, Syria is, one case in point that proves to the Iranian public also supporting the government to go against, Israeli aggression. Even interestingly, those who have been not, those who have been very critical of the political establishment in the country here in Iran, they also supported the punishment of Israel, because what they see this not as an action against the Islamic Republic, but they see this as a threat to the totality of the country, the Iran itself. This is not just about the political system, but about the whole country, and they want to somehow dismember country, which will make all walks of lives, all people here in Iran to suffer and to face those consequences, not just the political system. So that's why we saw that the people were united against that military aggression. This maybe came as a surprise to the Israelis or American governments, because their calculus was that as a result of or following the military aggression, there could be some chaos in the country and people will come to the street, and that could be a prelude for a gradual regime change in the country, or at least making the country insecure.
Yeah, and it didn't work at all. I mean, do you think that there's been a real shift in the minds of the average Iranian? I mean, are you hearing, I know it's anecdotal, but just nonetheless, like, has the attitude of the average Iranian changed a little bit about everything? Are they kind of like, yep, it looks like there's nothing we can do. They just want to topple us and turn us into Syria. So, why even go along with any of this? I mean, that would be, I would think a lot of people would have made that sudden realization. Maybe people that hoped that these negotiations and doing a deal, and maybe there was some good faith space that they could get into. But I would think a lot of them just kind of was like, yeah, you can't work with any of these people. They're not willing to really truly work with us. This is just a joke. I mean, is that a sentiment that you think more people are feeling, or is it the same as before?
We have been, seeing some changes among the public here in the country. and the level of disappointment toward the United States has increased among people. Some part of the society thought that through the political negotiations, the country or the government could have been able, in order to lift the sanctions against the country, or this could somehow improve the level of welfare in the country, or the living conditions, specifically economically in the country. But what happened? They saw that, Iranian government was engaged in those political negotiations. All of a sudden, that a military aggression happened against the country.
Yeah.
And I remember that back in the days of the war, a journalist was asking me a question whether this war has made Iranian public to review their thoughts about the missile capability of the country in order to urge the government to stop those policies. I said that has been vice versa. It has been the opposite. Nowadays, even that was the discussion among the elites back in the past, that they thought that in order to establish a deterrence, the country needed to strengthen its defense capabilities, including the missile and drone, power. But these days, when you're talking to the ordinary and the people and the public, even those who are not elites or those on the streets, you're talking to them, they are also, supporting the government's policies of strengthening their missile and drone power and military power. They think that that policy could somehow create a kind of, let's say, immunity for the country against an external threat in future. So when they are seeing that Iran is increasing its military power, if in the past some were, questioning the costs of those, let's say, policies, today they are supporting, they are happy about this, because they think that this could increase the chance of their immunity. They can lessen the chance of a war in future, and this could establish a deterrence against any military aggression from coming outside. And they these days, if in the past thought that the animosity coming from the Israeli side and the American side is against the political system or the government or the military, but what happened in the 12-day war, the people in the cities, including here in Tehran, they saw that the attacks also happen against the civilians. They saw that a military aggression is not just a threat to the political establishment and the system, but against the ordinary people and the civilians as well. So there's also a shift and a change in their perception that aggression or military, threat coming from outside could be a threat not just to the political system, but to the whole country, including those people as well.
Yeah. I mean, I could give a very easy answer. Never has there ever been a strong nation without a strong military. Never. In the history of the world has there ever been a strong nation without a strong military. So, I understand. And this is why the United States is the way the United States is, right? This is why the U.S. says we have to have this giant military. It's also been the downfall of many of these powerful nations when they extend their military, like the Roman Empire, right? You can go back to that era, and you could see how these empires, when they get greedy and they start to really expand, that is also their downfall. But never in the history of the world has there ever been a strong nation without strong defense, without strong military might. Never in the history of the world. So that's the answer. I mean, North Korea, you look at North Korea, and we were having these discussions about that. Oh, they're going to get a nuke. Oh, no, all this. And then they got one, and then everybody just stopped talking about North Korea. It was like pretty much overnight. It was like, okay, let's just stop talking. Let's just not upset them because they have nukes and they could fire them off at us. So that's the obvious answer. The question is, can you get to the strong military? And I understand if you have a religious theocracy that's leading the country, and they might say, well, we don't really want to be that type of aggressive country. We want to be peaceful. We don't want to be warmongering and building up a giant military, because once you do that, what do you do with it? People, there's a desire to use it, the temptation to use it. And that's how empires start growing and becoming monsters. But so I understand that, but I mean, it's an easy answer. The question is, how do you get there without being blown up first before you even make it to that point, which was North Korea's question, right? They were trying to figure out, how do we get these nukes? How do we do this before they come after us? And it's tricky, but they were eventually able to do it. Clearly, Israel's also been able to do it sneakily, right? They won't admit it, but we all know they've got nukes. Although sometimes I question it, because I think if they had nukes at this point, they probably would have used them on Iran by now, because they've shown themselves to be a bit, unstable in their thinking. But I mean, that's the obvious answer. Never in the history of the world has there ever been a strong, stable country without a strong, mighty military. Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.